Good evening. Welcome to the Wendell Elamine James Show. Tonight's guest we have Ernest Kirkwood, uh, longtime offender that's been 30 years in prison. He's home from prison. He's been home for a while and doing outstanding work in the community. So we want to bring Ernest Kirkwood on and allow him to tell who he is and where he's going in the future. Welcome to the show, Ernest.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Um, you did 30 years in prison.
Yeah, a couple of months short
A
of
month
30.
shorter than 30 years. Where did you start your time?
I started my time in Old Folsom. I went to Old Folsom, was in Old Folsom for about 6 months. They redid my classification score, and I left because at that time, Old Folsom was level 4. And I left there and went to Soledad Central,
Okay,
which was level 3,
okay,
and was there for 6 or 7 months, and then I went to Vacaville.
okay, okay,
Was at Vacaville for about 8 or 9 years, and from Vacaville to uh, CSP Corcoran. I was at CSP Corcoran for about 9 years, 8 or 9 years, and from there I went to Soledad North facility, and I spent my last 10 years of incarceration there.
okay,
Mhm.
okay. I'm gonna ask you a few basic questions because the community need to know, that we're not just throwaways. We went to prison for whatever crime we went to prison for. We went temporarily insane, but we came back. A lot of people that's in the community went insane and they never came back, and they're still here. They never left. But we want to know what time in your incarceration that the light clicked on to realize that you had to start doing something different with your life to get out of prison.
Well, initially, the light went on before I entered prison the second time, because I went to prison as a young man.
Mhm.
I went in 1962, on 5 counts of assaultive robberies, and I was paroled in 1971. And during that period, I had thought that I had addressed my violent issues as to what the motivation was and where did it come from. And I was paroled in like I said, 71. And honestly, I did not realize the severity of my penchant for violence until I murdered 2 people. I murdered 2 people in July 1982 and wounded a third. And that I realized then I did have an issue. I ended up going to prison and knowing that the murders didn't put me in prison. My willingness to commit the murders put me in prison.
Right, right.
And I had to look at that. But I didn't look at it for, I don't know, probably like 15, 16 years down the road.
Okay.
Because when I got to Folsom, I had capital murder. I was facing a gas chamber. Got a hung jury, and ended up taking a deal for 15 to life. And at that time, I had been locked up. I've been in custody for 5 years, and my thinking was that if I take the deal for the 10 to life, I would have to do 10 before I could become eligible. I'm gonna be credited with 5, so in 5 to 7 years, I'll be out.
Be out,
So
right.
I'm still that sick
Yeah,
thinking,
yeah,
all right.
Yeah.
And that was my thought when I took the deal. And it wasn't until I got to Folsom and was at Folsom a couple of weeks, and one of the guys that I knew when I did my first term gave me a copy of the CDC, or the Matrix, for time for lifers and whatever. And I looked, and it says first termer, second termer, 1 victim, 2 victim, 3 victim. So I look, okay, second termer, multiple victims, and it said 25 to 30 years. I was like, what? I'm thinking 5 to 7.
Right.
So okay, so for the first 14, 15, 16 years, I just did what we call AMs and PMs. I just did whatever, to keep myself, keep my head above water. About I don't know, about maybe like 15 years in, a couple of things happened. One, a dear loved one passed away quite unexpectedly. At the same time, at that particular point in my life, I had 7 alcohol-related 115s, which are disciplinaries, and I realized that at some point, the Board of Prison Terms is going to make me pay for these 7 alcohol-related 115s. And the last 2 that I had received was a fluke. I mean, one in a million. But I got busted.
Right.
And I'm blessed enough that I have enough sense to say, you know what? There's only one way that I can be assured of never getting another alcohol-related 115.
Right.
I got to stop messing with it.
Right.
Leave it alone.
Yeah.
Then when my friend passed, and I said, well, you know what? I'm not going to let her passing be in vain. I'm going to do something that she would be proud of. That she would like to see. And I said, you know what? That's it. I'm through. I'm through. Oh, and then after that, I founded the Balanced Reentry Activity Group. The acronym was BRAG, because there was it was a very large lifer population at Soledad, and we would go to the board and be told that they wanted us to involve ourselves in self-help programs, but there wasn't any at Soledad. And year after year, people was getting denied for not being engaged in self-help programs. We looked into it and found out that we had brothers on the yard that were certified facilitators. So we went and got a pre-staff sponsor and started doing the paperwork to be recognized as an inmate activity group that would allow us to do studying and whatever. And our first meeting was held in the paint and deck shop. The paint and deck instructor was our sponsor. There was 6 or 7 of us, and he had 6 cassettes on nonviolent communications. That was our first class.
That was your start.
Yeah, and fast forward to 5 years later, when I paroled from Soledad, we had upwards of 250 men actively involved in our program and classes.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing.
And before I knew it, I had clean time. Because when I made that decision with the drinking and with starting of the group, whenever a new group was started for the mainline population, I attended that group. One, because I needed it, and secondly, I want to see if the facilitator is any good.
Right, exactly.
And so that's what I started doing. And I realized that I couldn't do it for the board. I couldn't, because I talked to people that had put in the work, but they put in the work for the board. And the difference, and I want people to know the difference is this. If I go to different programs, self-help programs and classes, so I can show the board that I did, I'm going to miss a lot. Because I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it so I can show the board that I did it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I realized that if I do this for me, from that point on, anything that you want to ask me about me, I can answer at any time. And if I do the work, when it's time for me to leave, I'm gonna leave. That's just the spirit that I had.
Right.
That's the spirit that I had. And the last couple of times that I was denied when I was at Soledad, I would go up and do the very best that I could. I'd be prepared in the whole shot, and I wouldn't be found suitable. And I was like, okay. I would ask myself one question. The last 3 times I went to the board, I asked myself one question. I'd return back to my cell. I'd go over what happened, and then I'd ask myself one question. And that question was this: if you were released tomorrow, would it all be good? And my truthful answer would be no, or not really.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Okay. I said, okay. And I continued to do the work. And I was benefiting from the work, and I was learning how to communicate with my peers on the yard, because when I go from like just being here and surviving and being in a leadership role or a role model role, it requires more.
Right.
It requires more.
Right.
There was a time I'm sitting here conducting this interview. It was a time I couldn't talk.
Right.
At all. And something come up, it was either my way or the highway.
Yeah. Exactly.
And so I did that, and I got comfortable with what I was doing. Like I said, I left prison in 2012. Physically. Emotionally, I left about 5 years prior to that. But once I accepted my shortcomings,
Right.
and did the work and knew what I was dealing with,
Right.
all right, I knew that I was going to be all right. And when I covered the ground that I needed to cover, I would leave.
That's right. Yeah.
And that's just the way it happened.
Yeah.
That's just the way it happened.
Now, coming home from prison, you came home, and you've been putting work in since you've been home. You've been putting a lot of work in. You covered a lot of ground in the years that you've been home. What are you doing now?
Well, right now, I came out. I was paroled. I came out to Walden House 360, better known as 890 Walden House. And right now, I am employed by Health Right 360. I went through the program as a client and went out to Treasure Island to a sober living environment, was a house manager. 2012, my first exciting thing that happened in 2012 is I worked about a month at the U.S. Open golf tournament. Wow. And that was one heck of an experience. I've been gainfully employed. My first 2 years, I was employed at the corner store as a dishwasher. I became involved in the 49er organization. I was working the Candlestick for all the 49er home games and special events. And I'm now down at Levi Stadium. For about a year and a half, I was with the Mega Boys Club and going out with Jack to co-facilitate meetings with the youth out at the Youth Guidance Center. I'm on the San Francisco Reentry Council, and about a couple of months ago was reappointed to a 2-year seat, and I currently chair the subcommittee on support and opportunities. And right now, I feel that this year is going to be my year.
This year going to be your year.
Yeah, and the reason why I say that is I do a lot because I realize I don't know a lot about how best to do what I want to do. There is a saying by I think it's Chairman Mao that says, "Be the change you want to see in the world." Right? And it's things I do because I can, and it allows me an opportunity to be an active part in my community. It also gives me opportunity to be a leader in my community, and I believe in leading by example.
Exactly.
You know, I'm not a verbal leader.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I will do the work and not ask you to do anything that I'm not doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and doing these things. You know, I know it's going to be around reentry. Specifically, I don't know. I went to City College, and last semester got my community health worker certification, and I do a lot of inspirational speaking. My last engagement was at the Hall of Justice for the in custody graduation.
Okay.
You know, I was a keynote speaker there,
Mm-hmm.
and when I say find my niche, something is going to come up that will require all my focus.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be something that I'm going to enjoy doing.
Right.
You know, and they say it ain't a job if you enjoy doing
That's
it.
right. Yeah.
And some people don't understand it when I say I don't know exactly what it's going to be. But most of the positive and beneficial things that has happened to me the last 4 years, and it's just countless, I had not anticipated, nor did I see it coming.
Mm-hmm. It just happened.
As I go down the road
Mm-hmm.
and remain focused,
Mm-hmm.
what I need and what I need to do is in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
And this year, when it shows up, I will be able to identify it.
There you go.
And embrace it.
Right, right. Well, I'm a firm believer that I'll say it again. Everything happens for a reason.
Oh, absolutely.
Everything happens for a reason.
Absolutely.
You know,
absolutely.
The Creator doesn't make mistakes. Everything is on time, the way that it's supposed to be. You know, you got. I said, you come home from prison, you've made a lot of difference in a lot of people's lives. You know, and the work that you're doing, keep on doing it. You know, we have people coming from prison right now. We have a large number of people coming home from prison. You know, Department of Corrections are allowing lifers to come home at a large number. We just had a sister going to Solano last week. She went in Solano, said there's a number of people getting ready to come home from Solano. So we come home in a large number, and we need somewhere to come home to be safe.
You know, I'm really happy to be able to come down, you know, and be with you, because not only to be able to show what change can look like, and put that out there, but also to let people know that people coming out of prison, we need the support of the community.
Exactly, we do.
I understand also that there are members of the community that don't know anything about lifers, except the fact that we have taken a life, and they may have. It's not too many people in this community that either has had someone in their family or know someone that has someone in their family that's been a victim of violence. Right. And that being there is really hard to for some people to embrace us. You know, but lifers historically do not reoffend.
We don't.
And I think that is in part to maturity, longevity of time, and the willingness to change. Because you can't change unless you want to.
Want to change. We have to want to change.
I was speaking a couple of days ago, and I brought up, and the older audience will be able to relate to this better than the younger audience. And that is, when I was a kid, I used to hear my parents speak about this person. It may be my uncle or the neighbor, whatever. And they would say, oh, he or she is just stuck in their ways. Right? And the inference is, because of the age, the person can't change.
Right.
That's just them. And their behavior was accepted. And it wasn't until 40 years later when I start my change and start becoming aware and start reading and studying and realize that what we're doing now that is not socially acceptable or illegal is learned behavior. It's learned behavior, which means that it doesn't matter how old you are or how long you've been engaged in the behavior. If you want to change the behavior, you can.
You can certainly change. You can certainly change.
That's the bottom line.
Yes.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, you can certainly change.
60, 70, 80, it doesn't matter.
Right.
If you want to change a behavior or you want to change something in your life, you can do it
You can certainly change.
if that is your desire and
right.
your commitment to yourself.
That's right. You can certainly change. Yeah. Old saying you can't teach your old dog new tricks. Yes, you most certainly can.
Yeah.
You most certainly can. They say from the cradle to the grave you can learn. It's always been.
Well, see, you know what the old dog new tricks is not a good analogy, right? It's not a good analogy because you can't teach the old dog new tricks if he don't want to learn it.
They don't want to learn it. Exactly.
You understand what I'm saying?
Better
But now
put.
on a human level,
Yeah, better put.
okay,
Better
on a
put.
human level, all right, if you want it, you can get it.
get it.
Just like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Of course you can't make him drink.
Right.
He don't want to
They
drink.
don't want to drink. Exactly. Yeah.
And the same with some people in their behaviors. They don't want to
They
change.
don't want to change. That's right.
For whatever reason, they don't want to change. And if they don't want to change,
They're not going to change.
the minister, the police,
Whoever it
mama,
is.
daddy,
They're not going to change.
you're not going to impact that change because they don't want to.
That's a fact. That's a fact. Yes, that's a fact.
And we have to accept that.
Yeah.
They don't want to.
Yes. So the work that you do today, you are with the reentry, you're on the reentry council.
Mm-hmm.
You work with Health Right 360,
Mm-hmm.
known as Walden House,
Mm-hmm.
right? You do amazing work there. I've attended quite a few of your groups on Saturday mornings.
Oh, yeah.
I was part of 890 for a number of months. I'm a graduate from 890, and it's an outstanding program. It really is. A matter of fact, I think it's the best program in San Francisco.
Well, you know, last week I had an opportunity to talk with Ms. Schaefer.
Mm-hmm.
She's the executive officer of the Board of Prison Terms.
Mm-hmm.
And I had spoken with her last year when she came into the Peer Reentry Navigation Network, which meets the second Tuesday of each month in the parole department, and it's lifers that have come out on parole and meeting once a month, okay, to talk and discuss and support each other and provide each other with resources, And I had spoken with her, and it was good to speak to her because one of the things that I wanted to share with her from the ground level, that's what we on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
See, everybody's making these rules and all this. They up here
Right.
making rules that affect us, but we ain't at the table.
Right.
And I wanted to speak with her in regards to what was happening with 890 and 111 Taylor, which is another residence that a lot of lifers go to when they come out, and that is needed.
Mm-hmm.
That is needed, and even it's been my experience with myself and numerous of lifers I've talked with, is that even if you have family out here, even if you have family and your family's all right,
Mm-hmm.
if you done did 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 years in prison, regardless of how much you got it together and how much work you done did, it's in your best interest when you're paroled to come out to a semi-structured environment.
I agree 100%.
It's in your
Yes.
best interest.
Yes, I agree 100%. Yes, it is.
Some people don't agree with that. Some lifers don't agree with that.
Yeah, I know.
You know, I know. I've talked to lifers that come into 890. 890 is highly structured. Also, CDCR has contract for 15 beds with Health Right 360, Walden House. The funding agency require their clients to have 31 hours of classes and structure a week.
A week. That's right.
That is part of that. That's the requirement. That's the requirement. And the overall majority of people that come in will look at it as, okay, it's something that maybe I need this, maybe I don't, but it doesn't matter. It's part of the process that I'm in, and I'm gonna go through this process the best of my ability.
Right.
Then there are some that says, well, I done had all these classes, I done facilitate these classes, you know, and I had an individual tell me that. Man, I used to facilitate these classes. I facilitated this and I facilitated that, and I sit there and I listen.
Yeah.
And you know what I said to him? He it's not easy to get me frustrated in that type of thing. But I really got angry, and I told him, I said, "Oh, you facilitated these type of classes and stuff." He said, "Yeah, man." I said, "Well, you know what, brother? You didn't learn nothing from them.
Learn nothing from it.
Because if you'd have learned anything from them, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Exactly.
We would not, because any type of self-help group that an individual will go in, I don't care how many he done already been to, if he goes into anyone with an open mind, he's going to get something out of it. Because you can't get everything in one shot. You can't get everything in one shot. You know, so that in talking with people and seeing, that's another thing that is so important about the work that you're doing, because there ain't too many people that can communicate with me better than you.
That's right.
Because you've been where I've been.
Exactly.
I've been where you've been.
Exactly. We have a whole lot in common.
And when you go out to help the community and go out to help other lifers and stuff, they can't really give us a song and dance.
Right.
Because we know all the moves
That's right.
and know all the music.
That's right.
Okay, and we can just say, hey, come on, stop it, man.
Come on with the real.
Stop it. You know I know better, so let's.
Yeah, exactly.
So what you're doing is very important. I think what I'm doing is very important, because one thing that I've come to realize, and is very important, is this. Regardless to the individual, most people can recognize sincerity. And when I'm speaking to a group, whether they want to hear it, regardless if they're ready to hear it, or even if they don't even feel like it applies to them, they know that what I'm sharing with them is true.
They know.
And that I am really quite sincere in what I'm trying to share with you.
Exactly.
Because I'm not telling you to do it my way. I'm not saying anything other than how my life has went and how things continue to show up for me. And what I think of myself and how I come to think about myself, as well as how much joy I get from being active in my community.
Right, there you go.
And trying to deal with the young people in my community, and trying to get the older folks to realize, hey, we all human.
That's right.
We done made some really bad mistakes.
Real bad mistakes. Yeah.
And we can't go back. We can't change that.
Right.
And the only way that we can show that we are remorseful for our prior behavior, okay, is to do better today
Exactly. Exactly.
and help others the way that we've been helped.
Exactly. We have to share. We have to pass it on.
But we can't, as they say, we can't put the toothpaste back in the tube.
It can't be done. We have to pass on what we've learned from our mistakes
Exactly.
to those that still suffering from a disease, like I say, that they don't believe they have.
Yeah.
They're suffering.
Well, like they say, you can't before you can change a behavior, you have to accept and admit
You have that.
that it's time for a change.
Exactly. Exactly.
Because for years, all wrong, all right.
That's right. Yeah. All about me.
All about me.
All about me.
All about me. And that is what we do.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is what we do.
Yeah.
And we realize way later, and for an example, my son is 42 years old.
Mm-hmm.
He is 7th period plumbing apprentice here in the city. He absolutely loves it. And I'm blessed that I still have a really good relationship with him. Mm-hmm. And what was sad is that I really truly love my son, and I went and got him when he's like about 18 months old, and I raised him the first 10 years of his life. And to be able to have him still in my life, and we're having conversations now that we didn't have 15 years ago,
Right.
or 20 years ago.
Right.
And here's a point I want to make. We be out there doing what we're doing, and we have kids, and we think that they don't know what we're doing, right? And we love them, and we provide for them, all right? But we do not look at how our behavior can impact our kids.
Right. That's right. Major.
Because see, if I like I said, I truly love my son. And if I would have thought of the consequences before I did what I did, I would not have did them.
Right.
Because the worst case scenario would be exactly what it was. You're going to prison for life. What happens to your son? You left him.
Yes. Yes.
That's the only way I can put it.
Yes.
I left him. So I can't really be angry. I mean, I'm blessed, but I couldn't be angry, upset, whatever, if he decided that when he wrote that he didn't want to talk to me again in life.
Right.
I would have to accept that.
Accept it. Right. Exactly.
Because I let him down as a father.
Yes.
I was supposed to raise him and protect him.
Yeah.
But I left him at 10 years of age, okay, because I was stuck on some stupid stuff.
Yeah.
So I speak on that, especially when I go to the jails,
Yeah.
because it's young men there that's going back out to the streets.
Going back. Yeah.
That county jail is their last shot. The next time you go into prison, right? Don't think about you, man. Think about your kids.
Right.
You know?
Well, Mrs. Kirkwood, we appreciate you coming on to the show this evening. We really do. We want to bring you back real soon. We want to bring you back whenever you're available to come back. We want to bring you back and continue your story because people need to hear it.
Well, I appreciate it, but I want to make it perfectly clear that me coming back is not about my availability. I'm available when you need me.
Okay. Well,
When you say you have a slot and you want me down here, I'll be here, brother.
well, with that, we're gonna let the audience know. We'll have him on the show next week at the same time, 7:00 Saturday night. You can tune in to see Mr. Kirkwood and continue his story because he has something to say, and you need to hear it. Community and society need to hear that we went into society, man-made society, we committed crime, whatever the crime it was. We went temporarily insane, but we came back. You know, we went into the system and we rehabilitated ourselves. We became good, upstanding human beings. We came back into society as law-abiding citizens, and we're part of this community. We ain't going nowhere. We're back, right? So, Mr. Kirkwood, we're going to invite you back next week, and with that, we're going to bid you all good night, and we'll see you next week. Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everyone.